Today we're going to make a little sweet flower. In the center, it's a magic circle with 10 single crochets. It has 5 petals, and each of the 5 petals has a high spot, and that high spot are 2 trebles, and then on either side of that high spot are shorter stitches, and those are half double crochets. We're going to start with a 5.0 millimeter hook and sugar and cream 100% cotton yarn, and we're going to start with a magic circle. Grab that intersection, kind of pull it tight, and then we're going to do 10 single crochets into the magic circle. 1, 2, and that's 10. I'm going to grab that tail, cinch it. Now we're going to slip stitch to close that circle. Slip stitch into this first stitch. There's a lower part of the stitch and an upper part of the stitch, and we're going to put our hook through both of those. It's a little tight, so I usually go at it upside down, kind of in the back way, with the pointy part of my hook. That catches that lower part of the stitch, and then I'm going to come up here and grab the upper part of the stitch. So that's as far as we go on that slip stitch with the yellow thread, just getting our hook in there. I'm going to let go of the yellow and grab a new color to finish the slip stitch. So this is how I'm going to do it. It's going to be a tail on the end of that orange. Fold it in half, make a loop, hook it on, and then bring that through and then bring it through that original loop to complete that slip stitch. And I pull it tight that way, and then I'm going to reach down and pull it tight with the yellows. Okay, so new working end. The working yarn of the orange is what I'm going to work with now. At the very beginning, the petal starts a little differently than the other petals. I'm going to bring my orange tail off to the left here so I can work over it. And the first petal is going to start with 2 chains. Chain 1, chain 2. And then we're going to go into the half double crochet, so it's yarn over, and then into that same hole right here under that orange thread. If you push, you can find it. yarn over, and then for a half double you're going to go through all 3 loops. And then you're going to do a treble. This is the highest part of the petal there. That was 2 yarn overs, and then you have 4 on your 4 loops, and you're going to go through 2, 2, 2. Okay, so that was all in the same hole, and now we're going to finish that petal by moving to the next stitch and find the next hole. Do our second treble, that's yarning over twice into the hole, going through 2 loops, 2 loops, 2 loops, and then we're going to go back into the same hole but with that shorter stitch, the half double crochet. Through all 3, and we're going to finish this petal by doing a chain 1 to kind of lock it in. So that's our first petal, and it's made in those 2 holes. I'm going to keep that tail going and keep working over it to lock it in. Starting that second petal, it starts with a slip stitch into the next hole. Slip stitch right there, and then a chain 1. And now we're going to do that whole thing again where we do first a half double crochet into the same hole. Go through all 3, and then we're going to do a treble into the same hole. Then we're going to do a treble again, but into the next hole. And then that half double crochet to come down the other side of the petal. And then a chain 1 to lock it in. Going on to petal number 3, start it again with a slip stitch into the next hole. Then a chain 1. Half double. Treble. Things start to stretch a little bit, and that's okay. We'll fix it at the end. And then another treble into the next hole. And then a half double into that same hole. Oops, that wasn't a half double, that was, I'm going to back out. Again, at that half double, going through all 3 loops, there we go, and then a chain 1 to lock it. 4th petal, start with a slip stitch and a chain 1, then a half double through all 3 loops, and a treble, then another treble in the next hole. Put those 2 trebles next to each other, and then a half double crochet to come down the other end of the petal, going through all 3 loops in that half double, a chain 1 to lock, and then we're in our final petal. So final petal starts with a slip stitch, like always, and then a chain 1, and then half double, and then a treble. All of that happens in the same hole. And then another treble in that final hole. double, and then chain one to lock it in. And then I like to finish with that final slip stitch because it kind of finishes it all off. Great. There we have it. So you notice that the center got kind of stretched out as we did those 5 petals. No problem. Turn it over and cinch it once again. So grab your yellow tail. You should have a tail that's yellow, and then the other yarn is still connected to the yellow ball. So pull that tight. Cinch up that circle again. And then what I do at this point is I cut the other yellow. Cut that other yellow line or other yellow yarn. And then I tie a square knot, so right over left, left over right. That assures that that cinched circle will stay cinched. And then I'll hide those ends in a minute. So turning it back over to my hook in the yarn still. I usually take a last slip stitch really to cover up that little bit of yellow yarn. Whatever yarn you've done the center with will show right here. So I come over to this hole right here, this big hole, stick my hook in there and do one more slip stitch in order to cover up that last little show of center yarn. I cut that yarn away from the ball, and then I pull that end through. And you can cinch it down. There you are. So that one I just cut could use a really good, careful pinning down. So I usually go in right here to get it to the back. And then flip it over. Once I'm on the back, I try to go 3 times. So grab a bunch of threads one way, that's 1. And then 2. And then 3. Just grab some. And then I cut. This other orange tail is the one we worked over as we were building the petals. So I don't feel like it needs quite as careful tucking away. So I just usually go twice. So that's once. That'll do it. And then these are really well tied already, but I do like to tuck these away too. Just go 2 or 3 times on those. I usually just go 2. And there's your little flower ready to use as a decoration, or I've been making a garland with it. And I'll show you how to do that garland on another video.